Hey everybody, and welcome to another edition of Out Today and What I Missed, this time for June 26, 2026. Not only do we have 23 albums this week to cover, 10 out today, 12 that I missed, and one that's technically coming out on Sunday, this is also my last week of coverage before I go on a month's break, coming back the final week of July to cover everything that I missed in July, because I really need a summer break after the year that I've had so far. So let's make sure that we wrap this up right with some amazing albums coming out, and let's just get into it. First up, we have Druidess with Trip Meadow. The debut album from this UK outfit is quite the eclectic take on Doom, mixing together a blend of folk, psychedelic, and alternative in their style of Doom, makes the music fun and engaging, while having this very evil take to it all, and a production style that feels vintage, but songwriting that transcends so many eras. I truly enjoy what the band is accomplishing here, and if you want a Doom band that feels like it can channel everything from The Doors, to Windhand, to Alice in Chains, to all the Witches to Castle, Druidess is making a huge impact here, and I'm excited to see where the band and the music goes from here. Next up is Entropist with The Vision. The debut album from this Denver band has created an engaging and thought-provoking display of progressive death metal, feeling like a mix-up between The Buried in Me, The Contortionist, Opeth, and Haken. The band explores so much of what can be done with the genre, while adding some really cool elements of deathcore, post-hardcore, and other genre-bending moments to make a band stand out amongst the rest in 2020's progressive death metal. The production feels flawless, and the songwriting takes so many twists and turns that it makes you excited to see where the band has a store in the future. At 8 songs and almost 61 minutes long, this is a brilliant display of a debut album that takes you from the heaviest of heavy moments to some of the most melodic moments that you've heard in this style in a long time. If you think progressive death metal needs a shot in the arm, Entropist is here to deliver the goods. Next up is Forsmán with an album title I'm absolutely going to butcher, and I'm so sorry for doing so, but that's what's gonna happen here. Brenndar, Rústir, and Fuðrandi, Fjörur. My apologies for getting that wrong. The debut album from this Icelandic black metal band is an insanely brutal take on the genre. While the band is fully a black metal band, there's so many moments that will remind you of Blackened death metal in its intensity and prowess. The songwriting on this one is a clear selling point, selling you on the elements of bands like Emwa, Behemoth, Anal Nathrak, and Flicked to create an unholy sound that feels like you are in the 7th circle of hell, but at the same time, you don't mind being trapped in the chaos. The production is punishing and just raw enough while still allowing you to hear everything and feel its intensity. It's been a while since we've gotten a black metal album with this kind of momentum behind it. You just need to hear it for yourself. This is what the genre should be striving for going forward. Here we have Junius with Sotera. I have loved this band ever since I saw them opening for Enslaved and Alcest all the way back in 2011. It's been a long 9 years since their previous album, but the Boston band has returned with their 4th album, and it absolutely slays. With 3/5 of a new lineup, the band is bringing back so much of their heaviest post-metal elements, mixed in with the right doses of art rock, shoegaze, and post-rock, in an album that feels like the heaviest thing the band has ever recorded, but never loses that dark, eerie elements that made me fall in love with them 15 years ago. The production is crushing, yet it lets you hear every single element recorded, and the songwriting is inspired and done with such well-crafted thought behind each track. I had no idea if we would ever get another album from this severely underrated band, but I am so happy that they're back. If you want a truly unique take on post-metal, Junius has returned, and they are back with a vengeance. Next up is Masterplan with Metalmorphosis. Germany's Masterplan returns with their 7th album and first in 9 years. Their blend of melodic metal, power metal, and heavy metal has always been a winning combination no matter the lineup, and that is no different here. Between all 10 tracks and a little over 50.5 minutes, it is filled with their signature blend that never strays too far from the path, but feels like a returning sound that we've needed for quite a long time. The fast songs feel so nice and punchy, and the slow songs feel so melodic and full of heart. If somehow you have never heard the band, but you enjoy the likes of Advance for obvious reasons, Halloween, Edguy, and Nocturnal Rites, Masterplan has returned with one of their best albums to date. I just hope it won't be another 9 years till we get the next album. Here's Nunslaughter with Satanic Chaos Legions. The almighty Nunslaughter has returned with their 6th album, and it's quite the heavy trip. 14 tracks, a little over 34.5 minutes of pure American death metal, feeling like such a classic throwback to the original death metal sound, but updated for 2026 to have the same impact that it would have back in 1986. This is a no-frills type of album with no fat on the bone whatsoever. Just comes in with every track, destroys everything in its path, and leaves you in the wreckage. Every track on this one one feels so good on record, and I imagine it'll sound even better in the live setting. If you enjoy the likes of Possessed, Exhumed, Master, and General Surgery, you need to hear Nunslaughter. This is one of the best straight-up death metal albums of 2026. Next up is Prime Creation with Souls of the Fallen. The fourth album from the Swedish power metal band is my first foray into the band, and I truly wish I would have heard them all the way back with their first album in 2016. This is such a fantastic display of the heaviest ends of power metal, but never losing the melodies and harmonies that makes the genre work. It feels like if In Flames were a power metal band instead of a melodeath band, and I mean that in the best of ways. The production is simply perfect for the style, and no matter how heavy or somber the music gets, the songwriting fits and never lets up on its impact. At 8 songs and almost 36.5 minutes long, it's enough for you to show what this band is capable of and still leave you wanting more. If you want a mix of nocturnal rites meets the music of In Flames, Prime Creation is your new obsession. Now we have Siamese with Dissolution. This Danish band has come a long way from their Siamese Fighting Fish days. After a major change in the band's lineup, the band's 8th album is a darker and more experimental take, but never losing the modern metal, alternative metal, and modern metalcore sound that the band has been doing since the name change. It still has all the poppier and more accessible moments that you would expect, but due to the trials and tribulations of the band lately, the music is a much heavier take than it's been in a long time and feels emotionally gripping for that reason. At 10 songs and 35 minutes, it is the perfect time capsule for where the band is right now, with an album that is helping them binge and purge and hopefully leading them into a brighter future. But I'll be happy no matter what musical direction they go into next. In the meantime, this is an album that will help you out as well if you're feeling the wreckage of 2026, but you want it heard in a very accessible way. Check out Siamese, and if you're feeling saucy, go back to the first 2 albums when they were Siamese Fighting Fish to hear the more proggy side of what I fell in love with all those years ago. Here's a short and sweet one from Speedslut with Cimbrian Rites. I love black and speed metal so much, and for the 2020s, we've been sitting pretty well with the genre. Now we have even more with the debut album from this Danish black and speed metal band, taking the idea of speed metal but layering it in classic black metal, adding a vintage production style, all killer, no filler, and songwriting that leads to a 9-song and almost 35.5-minute display of the genre done right in every conceivable way. If you enjoy the likes of Hellripper, Vulture, Night Roar, and Sadistic Force, Speedslut is everything you want and more. I simply can't sell it better than that. And finally, for brand new music out today, we have Swanwriter with Melodies of Despair. The sophomore album from this one-man band known as Coda Swanwriter is a progressive death metal album unlike anything that you've heard. This takes so much intensity, but in both the themes covered and the musical direction, and makes it into a fluid take on progressive death metal, hitting so many directions but never losing sight of what the music is all about. At 6 songs and nearly 57 minutes, this is a bit long for some listeners, but for someone like me, this captures everything that I love and does it refreshingly. If you enjoy the likes of Flesh God Apocalypse, Niebla Scaris, Middle Era Opeth, and An Abstract Illusion, Swanwriter is an underdog of a project that you're going to fall in love with immediately. And now for everything that I missed along the way, starting with Abyssal Liturgy with Lamentations of the Desolate. It's been quite the busy year for Gregory Ritchie. Between a new Silent Deep Ocean album back in February, his latest solo album back in June 5th, Ritchie returns once again for a new band known as Abyssal Liturgy. And this is some of the darkest funeral doom that I've heard in quite some time. While Silent Deep Ocean has more of an experimental take on it, Abyssal Liturgy is 100% pure funeral doom in the deepest and darkest of ways, with piano leads in the right moments to add even more of an emotional impact. The production is raw and gritty as any good album in this genre should be, and to feel the true human nature of it all. And the songwriting is the dirges that will hit you so very, very hard. Themes and lyrical content of this album are something that resonates with me quite hard, dealing with the ideas of depression and loneliness, which I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy, but feels so cathartic in a musical sense. This is the exact opposite of a cheery, joyous album, but it is the kind of album that you can come out the other side feeling seen and validated. While obviously not for those who hate slow tempo music, this is for anyone who loves the funeral doom genre and feels like they are in a very dark place. This will hit hard, and I'm very thankful for that. Next up is Artificial Silence with Hollow Drift. The sophomore album from this Washington band is an excellent display of progressive metal, progressive rock, and the right amount of symphonic elements to make this stand out from others in the genre. No matter if they're writing a 3-minute short track or a 24-minute epic, everything has its place here and feels natural and fully intended to showcase both the musician's skills and songwriting ability. The music can get as heavy as Dream Theater and Haken, but it also has more of an alternative aspect, like in a band like the Deer Hunter. Of any band that I can think of, this heavily reminds me of the band Native Construct, who I deeply miss, mixing both rock and metal elements in a whirlwind of sound with enough differences to make them their own band. The style of prog has been hit or miss for me this year, but an album as good as Hollow Drift deserves its flowers. This is one of the best prog albums that you're going to find in 2026, bar none. Now we have Cambrian with Oceans Away. The debut album from this Dutch band is an astounding display of progressive metal and progressive rock. A concept album about a murder mystery that takes place on the ship known as Oceans Away that leads to so many musical and thematic twists and turns. I can see this being a little too cheesy for some people with its scenes and skits and storytelling, but for others, it's the kind of storytelling that reminds you of Arion and scenes from a memory era Dream Theater in the best of ways. Musically, I can hear so many elements of Seventh Wonder, Haken, some Opeth style growls at the right time to make this a dynamic and rewarding musical experience. It's been a while since I've heard a conceptual prog album this engaging, and I'm so thankful for a band like Cambrian pulling something like this off with a final product that earns every respin that it'll get. If this is your kind of prog, you need to check this one out. Next up is Dream on Dreamer with Heavens. This feels like such a left turn and departure for this Australian band, but at the same time, it feels like the right approach. 6 years after their last album and complete burnout, the band returns with their 6th album, and instead of going into the heavy metalcore sound that the band was known for, the band has shifted more into a modern, alternative, and radio-friendly sound. No screams, no breakdowns, all purely focused on writing catchy songs with massive hooks and binging and purging their souls after a major change in their personal lives. The result is either going to be something that makes you mad that they abandoned their old sound, or it'll sound refreshing and show a new chapter for the band. I can hear elements of the softer side of bands like I Prevail, but I also hear moments of bands like Caskets, Siamese, and Execution Day that all bring those melodies and harmonies home. I can see many people hating this one, but for me, it's a refreshing change of pace that has lyrics that truly strike a chord, and a style that the band wanted to make. In a world like 2026, you have to make the music you want to make, or what's the point? And that's exactly what's done here with Dream on Dreamer. Now we have Einir with Lifeblood. It's been 5 years since their last album, but the almighty Norwegian Viking metal band has returned with their 10th album, and it truly hits hard. It feels like an album of two halves, the first half feeling a bit more melodic, more clean vocals, and catchier, with the second half getting more into the darker, heavier aspects of the band, all while giving this more bombastic and dynamic approach to their songwriting as well. In a sense, it feels like the best of Einir with brand new material, showcasing both sides of the band and where they are in 2026. This is easily some of the best music the band has done to date. No matter what side of the band you enjoy, it'll have something for you. The production feels so appropriate and gives life to the music at hand. If you enjoy the likes of Tyrfing, Manigarm, Borknagar, and Middle Air Enslaved, you will dig Einir. Next up is Inherits the Void with The Silent Abscission. The 4th album in 5 years from this one-man French band is truly the finest work attached to the Inherits the Void moniker. The thematic album about 8 tales of different takes on the universe and the monumental impact of the different events on it. Vocalist Romain Negro and drummer Nicholas Mueller are guests on this album to help flesh out the sound, and their takes on the album only heightens the power of this album brings. The music feels so strong, and the actual songwriting has improved even further, which I didn't know was going to be possible. It's a total step up for the band, and it brings the music from it so very far. If you enjoy your atmospheric and melodic black metal in the vein of Vinterland, Emois, and Du Sabbath, you need to check out Inherits the Void. Here's Iron Cobra with Eternal Dagger. The 3rd album, and first in 11 years from this German band, is an album that any old school heavy metal fan needs right now. It encapsulates everything that you love about the sound, but done with enough flair and finesse to make them stand out and show what they are doing in the genre is right. The production is pure vintage in all of the right ways, and the songwriting is filled with so much heart and power that every song shines from beginning to end. If you dig the likes of Venator, Saber, Entraced, and Red Shark, you are going to love Iron Cobra. Next up is Lex Legion with their self-titled debut, the original King Diamond backing band with Nils K. Rue of Pagan's Mind on vocals. Is there any lineup that is sexier? Well, musically, this is everything that you would want it to be. It sounds like old school King Diamond with a little bit of Pagan's Mind flair, done in a short and sweet 9-song and a little over 34.5-minute collection. The music is as heavy and as haunting as it should be, with everyone on the album simply shining through. I truly hope more comes from this band, including more albums and hopefully live shows, as this is the kind of lineup that deserves to have a full-scale assault on all fronts. If you dig this old-school sound, you will love everything that Lex Legion has to offer. Now here's Lulu Suicide with Fiber Optic Lovers. The sophomore album from this Polish band hit me like a ton of bricks in an unexpected way, and I'm so grateful for it. It takes a truly unique band for me to enjoy something of this style and gravitate towards it, as it is not my usual bag, but when it's done right, it pulls me in with full force, and that's what happens here. With themes and lyrics that'll make you cry your eyes out. Musically, I hear so much of The Cure, middle era Porcupine Tree before they got heavy, Riverside, and the alternative rock era of Anathema, in the shoegaze, dream pop, and cinematic rock feel. The production feels like the perfect 90s album mixed in with the tragic beauty of the compositions. At 11 songs and a little over 42.5 minutes, this won't be everyone's bag that checks out this list, but I guarantee that this is the kind of album that you will never forget the second that you hit play. Brain tissues for this one, it's going to hit you hard. Next up is Matin Row Opera with Cinematography, featuring ex-members of the Versailles live band. This is the 11th album from this Japanese band and somehow my first foray into the band. This is such a fantastic display of the Japanese style of symphonic power metal and hard rock, filled with so much emotional impact and flair that it feels like you're experiencing an anime soundtrack right in before you. The production is human, but filled with so much polish and clean elements with songwriting that knows how to hit the heartstrings and make you want to start a pit at the same time. 11 songs and almost 48 minutes of pure fury in the best of ways. If you enjoy the likes of the aforementioned Versailles, Galanarius, and X-Japan, you will love Matin Row Opera. Now we have the Scalar Process with Agnomysticism. The sophomore album from this French progressive tech death band is equal parts brutal and beautiful. Seeing the progression from their debut album to now is insane, with their drive to incorporate more synths, along with more atmospheric moments, leading to a more ethereal sections in between the absolute technical chaos of their songs. Blending both together is such a triumph of sound that only gets better the more you listen to it, and the more it unlocks for you to appreciate every layer of sound. The production is top-notch, and leads to such appreciation for the musicianship at hand. If you enjoy the likes of Fallujah, IAT, Beyond Creation, and Obscura, the Scalar Process will be here for you. Now we have Warning with Rituals of Shame. It's been 20 years since this UK band's sophomore album, and now it's time to talk about their monumental third album. You can truly hear how bands that have come after Warning have been influenced by their sound, and now, with 2 decades of waiting, Rituals of Shame more than lives up to their legacy so far. It's the perfect culmination of doom, combining the sadness, introspection, and pain that life brings, done with a vocal delivery that will haunt your soul, and slow, ominous riffs that will echo through your head for days. The production is pitch perfect for the style, and the songwriting is undeniable in its power. If you want to hear how bands like 40 Watt Sun, for obvious reasons, Paul Bear and Chemist got their sound, you need to check out Warning. We needed them back, and I'm eternally grateful for it. And finally today we have Quartz Mother with Hesperus Phosphorus. This is such an intriguing album, fusing black metal, melodeath, dark folk, and indie rock into a sound that feels so dark, but so human. The production on this one is quite raw, which will turn off some immediately, but if you can get over that potential hurdle, you will have an 8-track album that goes across the board with some quite heavy riffs to sounds that would make Bjork blush, and everything in between. The themes on the album work great as an allegory for life, both in ancient times and for the times that we live in, and seeing them blend together is quite haunting, but so effective. You will hear a ton of black metal and black gaze elements that Panopticon and Death Heaven fans will love, done through a quite raw approach, balanced out by indie and folk elements that tie everything together and act as breathing room for the rest of the assault to the senses. Checking out their previous work on more of the indie and folk side, now taking a much harsher and more metal approach is a cool thing to see, and I'm curious to see what direction the band will go in the future. Till then, I highly recommend this if you want to hear a raw and intense take on the state of the world. And there you go, folks, 23 more albums down for Out Today and What I Missed for June 26, 2026. That means 77 albums down for June 2026 and 378 albums done for the first half of 2026. And you can tell by the sound of my voice and the way that I'm stuttering that I need a break. That's why I'm taking the next month off to try to recharge my batteries, try to get more of my physical and mental health in check, and come back strong when I do for Out Today and What I Missed for July 2026 on July 31st, 2026. Until then, go back and check out all 378 reviews that I've done for the first half of 2026, and above all, try to find some new music. It's a year that we truly need something for escapism. But until I come back in July 2026, this is Josh Runquist for the Heavy Debriefings YouTube channel saying, embrace the skillet.